This is Hearthstone Grandmasters, and right now it is posesi versus Ryvius, a grudge match of the two top countries here in Hearthstone Grandmasters for the Asia Pacific region: Japan for posesi and for Ryvius, South Korea. At the moment, it does definitely look, Gia, like Japan is top dog here, but potentially now with a chance for Ryvius to turn things around with the best deck in the game, the Quest Warlock, out of the way.
True enough. It does mean though that Possessi has access to one of the other best decks in the game, no sarcasm included, in Demon Hunter
Ah.
versus Rivius's Highlander Hunter. And we did see this matchup go the other way around last series, but I do think that Demon Hunter in most cases has the favor.
Yeah, and it's worth saying, I think, that it was one of the better hands we've seen for the Highlander Hunter from Surrender. He had the curve that works so nicely in order to swing back the board of Desert Spear into the Faceless Corruptor. Even though that was disrupted by a freeze, still the Varanus was good enough to close things out. I do generally agree with you that it is favored for the Demon Hunter rather than the Highlander Hunter overall. And I feel like Possessi is less likely to make one of those weird blunders where he goes too aggressively and ends up losing because of it.
Agreed. I think Possessi is a very considered player, and the times that he does turn on, sorry, get his foot off the brakes and go all face, it is definitely warranted. And the opener is already looking great for him. Battle Mage into Umberwing. That's the type of minions that you want to fight back against what Ryvius has, also a very good curve.
Yeah, very, very nice indeed. It's, again, one of the things I was talking about, where you don't want to keep the mediocre cards, you want to look for the very, very good cards indeed. I feel like Fairy Dragon just about falls into that. Oh, that's just Dwarven Sharpshooter.
So I'm liking the look of Sharpshooter now, even though it potentially
Same.
dies to just an Umberwing trade in the worst case scenario. Best case for Ryvius is maybe Possessi only hero powers, in which case Ryvius can just follow up with Desert Spear into Animal.
But oh my goodness, it's just gone from good to better here for Possessi. The State Overseer is insane.
It's true.
The only card keeping Ryvius in the game at all here is the Desert Spear, Gia. It is going to be crucial in swinging back the board.
It is his best possible response here. And something like, sorry, exactly Leok could be a very huge deal here to buff up the focus. Let it trade into the Overseer.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even Huffer wouldn't be all too bad to just take the trade.
Yep. And you know what? Even if it's Misha, at the very worst,
sure,
Ryvius can just double trade into this. But this, I think, is the absolute best case scenario. He has to clear off 2 minions and still end up with a well-positioned board.
Very happy with that.
Right, awkward now for Possessi, because if he wants to just play the Kayn, which he kept in the mulligan, it involves double trading to get rid of Leok, and if you leave it up, then you know that Ryvius is just going to summon another 2-1 rush for free. I don't think the argument for I-Beam hero power is good enough.
I think
that's the Spectral side for one draw.
Yeah, I like the Kayn on this turn as well. It's really just whether or not you go face for me on this turn, because with Metamorphosis in hand, even though you are accepting that they're going to trade the Locust into your 2-2, you can just start going really aggressively for lethal.
I was actually expecting Possessi to go face there, but what this does is that just the Desert Spear alone can't deal with the Kayn. So many opportunities for Ryvius here. I don't think that he has time to play the Felma anymore.
Really? So what are you expecting on your opponent's turn? I think the most likely answer is Warglaves, in order to try and play around here. To which Bone Wraith is pretty good, to be fair. It's a lot of awkward health totals to be worked through by a Warglaves.
I was gonna say, I think you just Bone Wraith here, even though it doesn't have Taunt in the face of Kayn. It sets up a sticky minion, for which he can then follow up with more I think, easier trades. Whether it's Zephyrus to give you removal for Warglaves this turn, I think that's fine for him. And then just Fairy Dragon with Primordial Explorer. I think that this just makes the most awkward minion for Possessi to deal with.
It was a very deliberate choice there by Possessi to play the Spectral Sight first, because he could, of course, gone Battle Fiend, then I-Beam, and then gone for the Spectral Sight in order to unlock the I-Beam for 1 mana. It didn't line up that well, to be fair, so I can definitely understand why he'd go for this line instead. And he's
freeze
rewarded.
here is a huge deal because Ryvius really wanted those extra bits of 1 damage to augment the 2 attack he already has on this Bone Wraith.
And I think if ever there was a time to get crazy with the Shadow Madness, now is that time.
Oh, yes.
7 damage at least that you are stopping and reactivating the taunt. We like the look of that.
And the buff to Shadow Madness is just stealth huge. I mean, we didn't immediately see its effects in the weeks that the buff came into play, but now the card has just made Priest a very strong class and been a buff to Zephyr as well.
Yeah. Just all the small buffs to Priest. The fact that Thought Steal, Shadow Madness, and Shadow of Death are all just kind of insane cards now. All together equal a very powerful class.
And now, because the Bone Wraith was not touched by Possessi, it's suddenly so problematic because he doesn't have Kayn anymore to potentially top deck and ignore it. He has to send quite some damage into it.
He really does. And just look at the difference in playstyle that we are already seeing here from Possessi and Chonsu. Possessi's been trading. And to be fair, maybe this is part of Chonsu's thought process. He went through testing and realized if you trade, you don't really win, because now this is looking disastrous for Possessi.
It really does. He's probably going to be sending another charge of the Metamorphosis into the Dragonbane. It is just threatening too much damage. Or we could see the Warglaves triple tank and I-Beam it down. But either way, he's not left with enough damage to close out the game in his favor. I think Possessi's best out is try and survive, hope that they don't have a Premier turn 7, just cover this Bran up, Derek, it's not there, and then top deck Skull.
Okay, that seems as good a plan as any, Gia.
Time grows short.
The waves all together. Does just give him the most board presence. You know what? This is the best in going into a Dino Tamer brand because Ryvius doesn't want to trade into these at all. Still though, not enough to get there for lethal on the next.
I guess this does mean that Dino Tamer Brand is not instantly GG. Actually, with the Desert Sphere, it does. I was going to say you could take it out with the I-Beam and both the minions and then start to heal up. But with the fact that the King Crush can survive for another turn, I am struggling to see a way out of this one.
Well, he could survive from his perspective just by healing up. But it involves trading as well, because if he takes the 2, then he's dead to hero power. Yeah, there is no nice way to go about this. Even if Possessi takes the trade so that he survives on board, there's just no top deck that can actually turn the game in his favor.
Yeah.
So yet again, we're going to see Highlander Hunter take a win over Demon Hunter.
I grow impatient.
We are indeed. It is just about locking down that early game, or at least just staying even in the early game for the Highlander Hunter, which of course Ryvius absolutely did, keeping the curve of 2, 3, 4 in the mulligan, even if he didn't end up using the Fairy Dragon at all. I think is just, clear that he knows exactly what you're trying to do. Play out your strongest minions every turn and pray that that gets there.
Oh, Possessi's actually found a way to deal with the King Crush. without
Okay.
face tanking it.
Fair enough.
That's
fair enough.
impressive. I'll give him that.
Oh.
Oh man.
Freeze is insane.
Still no way to win the game for Posesi, even if he wasn't frozen there, I think. Got a skull off the top.
Oh. Skull.
Maybe there was a way if he weren't frozen.
Yeah. No more I-beams now.
Yeah.
None of this is doing anything. If he hits a freeze, then he can stay alive.
Hey, I got you, friend.
True.
Which is something.
Now he has to play the twin slices to get the outcast. But
Yep.
not doing anything.
I see.
And it's going for the single drop.
For now.
Doesn't do it though. One game apiece now between Posesi and Ryvius. Closer than I thought it was going to be at the end there. But for Ryvius, it was just the fact he was able to keep up so much tempo in the mid-game, turn things around so quickly. And for Posesi, you know, while I still disagree with Chonsu's plays from the early game, it does speak a little bit more to his thought process, where you
Right.
do want to go as aggressive as possible in the matchup, because once they hit turns 6, 7, 8, the Hunter just starts to outvalue you.
I think that this is particular of Hunter compared to other Highlander classes at the meta right now, Mage and Rogue. I think that versus those classes, Demon Hunter can have some license to just ignore their board and go face, because
Yep.
they oftentimes can't pressure you enough for the counter lethal, and you can afford to concede board at that point. But against Highlander Hunter, I think there is far too much potential for them to swing back board in their favor and present counter lethal in 1 or 2 turns from the time you are actually trying to go for lethal. So it does make more sense to me, Posesi's line of play. But the other thing I want to point out is that in both of the games where Highlander Hunter was able to take the win over Demon Hunter today, it was heavily reliant on Desert Spear. That card just pulls
Great point.
so much weight
Speak
in
to
this matchup.
me.
Yeah, it is just right up at the top there in terms of the mulligan win rate for pretty much all the classes, especially the heavy tempo-based ones like Demon Hunter.
You're
Now,
just
once
gonna
again-
go into the mirror now.
Oh yes, into the known here for these two players with fairly equal curve as well. Actually, weirdly enough, Umberwing into 3-drop, but I'm just seeing here, Gia, so many times over and over the power of Frozen Shadow Weaver. I keep
Oh, yeah.
mentioning it, but I just can't get over it. It's insanely good in the matchup.
It really is. We're already going to see, I think, Posesi just play the sidekick on 1. We see this a lot of the time that Demon Hunter players in the
I
mirror,
grow
even if you don't get the
impatient.
ideal 1-drop, it makes such a big
grow
difference
sure.
to be able to play the 1-drop. And the curve just speaks for itself, right? He's got 1, 2, 3, coin 5.
Yep. And does that therefore mean, with all his mana spoken for, that he should just play out the beaming sidekick here?
Right.
Got you,
I
friend.
absolutely think so. And you say that this mirror is into the known, but I feel that every time I watch it, I'm still learning something a little bit new, especially now that players are including Worgen infiltrators. As you said, adds another texture.
Yeah, Ryvius has been a big fan of the Worgen Infiltrator with his build of the Highlander Hunter that was teched to beat Demon Hunter, so I guess it's less surprising that he was able to take the win there. But now, of course, the expected and only real play available to Ryvius coming down here.
You already can see opportunity for deviation from Posesi here. Obviously, the freeze is a lot less impactful now that the Satyr already came down and got its activation. So
Yeah.
for Posesi, could we just see him go for the counter Satyr?
I think for me, the line that I prefer, because
I
we still have the
grow
possibility to go
impatient.
coin glaive bound, is to freeze the face, double trade into the Overseer, and then the only real way that they are able to trade up into your own 4/3, your freeze, is if they have I-beam.
That's true. I might be overthinking this, but that also leads into
I
the
grow
response glaive bound.
impatient.
True.
But that is far ahead into the future. I think for the right now, this makes a lot of sense for Posesi.
I like this play a lot.
Are we feeling the 4-mana Bloodfen Raptor?
We are indeed. Oh no, sorry. Let's play it for the more usual 2 mana, just to feel a little bit more at home.
I hate floating mana though. This feels worse to me. It really does, there.
It's like, are you a in Quest Druid, are you a coin quest or a quest coin gamer? There's only one correct answer.
Oh yes. It's quest coin.
Of course. But now, Posesi, Frozen Shadow Weaver off the top is a
Oh,
huge draw
man.
and allows for another deviation here because he is, of course, thinking very adeptly so that Adept is the most likely play from his opponent on this turn. And he can just shut it out again. And for another turn, Ryvius can do nothing. Metamorphosis is the best he's got, and he is going to have to tank an absolute boatload of damage.
It is crazy how much the Shadow Weaver shuts off on the crucial turn 5.
Yep.
Warglaves also unavailable there, and Posesi, having saved the coin this whole time, can just still coin out hero power and play Glavebound if he wants to.
This is a little bit of a closer one because I'm seeing a lot of different lines that could be gone for here.
Yeah.
Metamorphosis coin hero power is something I'm actually considering on this turn, but I guess that would mean that you can't go Glavebound next turn because you're 1 mana short of reactivating the hero power. So maybe it's just Kayn?
Yeah, I think Kayn hero power is the responsible play here. Just because of the shape of Kayn, right? The 5 health makes it so that Ryvius can't simply Glavebound it down. But then
He has
again,
the hero
could,
power.
yeah, he could hero power it down, and he still has the weapon for activation
Right.
of Glavebound.
No matter what you do, you're pretty much looking at a full board clear. The only way to stop that is actually Satyr Overseer, which is such a weird play here that's so mana inefficient compared to the other lines.
I think we've reached the point in the game where mana inefficiency is not as important as preventing the biggest swing.
Right.
I think this is so brilliant from Posesi.
He's thought through it all, and he realized 5 damage from the hero power, 4 damage from the adept, and the 1 from the weapon. Every other line is way too weak for that. And he spots the one play that leaves him with something on board. This is genius.
This is so good. I'm so happy to see this. We saw the European and American casters raving about Gallon versus Bloody Face. Posesi can go toe-to-toe with those guys
I
any day of
grow
the week.
impatient.
Yeah, I like that the drama and the pressure is getting to a lot of these players, but I also am a big fan of an extremely high-level series of Hearthstone, which has been inconsistent here in the APAC, it's fair to say.
Right. For Ryvius, though, I think he's still got to go for the line that we were suggesting. It's not awful. It leaves up a 2-2. He takes 4 damage in the process, but it technically puts him ahead on board. The other option of Warglaves just takes way too much damage. Can't afford it.
Oh, but if you go for that and you get glaive bounded in response, you're just so far behind again.
Is he in a position where he can afford to play around Posesi's best play, though? I think Posesi thought that he was in such a good position that he could afford to go off curve and play around Ryvius' best play. But now
You're
Ryvius just has to hope that the answer isn't there.
And to be fair, he still has the second half of the hero power in order to take out the glaive bound, so it's not the end of the world here for Ryvius. He just needs to be making sure he doesn't take too much more damage, because just straight up pressure is Ryvius' biggest enemy here.
Is there
I
any
grow
opportunity for
impatient.
Posesi to go about this the other way around? Say if he goes Metamorphosis now,
Yeah.
he can clear off the Glavebound if he wants, but there's also the option to just send it all face.
My thinking for the reason to go Metamorphosis trade is it still keeps you ahead on board. I mean, unless you're setting up lethal on the following turn with just Metamorphosis face, which
He is.
I guess you are.
Yeah.
Then you're only playing around I-Beam? Is that worth playing around?
There's I-Beam and Freeze, because if Posesi's face gets
True.
frozen, he can't attack and play Glavebound.
Probably a little
Warglaves
bit
is the
too
one-
much overall.
This is the one I was not looking at, but this achieves face damage while also removing Glavebound.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it sets up Blueprint.
It does if nothing is cleared off.
Sure, but you can see the hero power at the very least.
But then again, if that happens, then it's a hero power into a 2-2.
True, you're very happy with that.
Yeah.
So this line also, I guess the only big punish is I
Demons?
Mm-hmm.
similar to the other lines.
Demons.
think Ryvius has to start the draw here to look for just that. Oh!
Ooh. And now all of a sudden he can freeze face and just go on the aggressive here.
He can. He can freeze face, attack into this 2-2, develop his Worgen, shoot face. He's presenting 6 damage on board. He's got Warglave's Twin Slice.
In the shadows.
He's
Does
threatening
actually
counter
get there.
lethals.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Possessi!
This
I've
is the
never
punish
seen
for
him
Possessi's line.
be so emotive. Love to see it.
He tanked 6 damage on the previous turn instead of going for the Glavebound here.
And Ryvius ships the 2 damage face, knowing that
Do you what must be
game is probably over next game. Next round already, so he might as well take the 2 damage where he can. But the clear is available for Possessi.
Oh, gee, it's so close.
It really is, but he just doesn't get there anymore. There's no way to remove without taking damage, and there's so much damage on the backswing for Possessi as well.
Yeah. It was a nice line to go for with the Altruist there to clear off the board and putting on as much pressure as possible.
Seeing less and less of Ryvius's face. And he throws it down in what I have to say is probably my favorite Demon Hunter mirror I've seen all season.
Yeah, that was just absolutely on the razor's edge there on all sides. It's so hard to know exactly how to sequence all those late game turns when you have five mana powerful plays, be it the Glavebound, the Metamorphosis, or the Warglaves, all of which have their merits and their downsides. I feel like the line that Possessi went for, even though they were all fairly weak to the freeze, that was the most vulnerable to the freeze out of all the plans because he tanked the damage and didn't develop anything onto the board.
Yes, the other line of Glavebound, the Glavebound, means he doesn't take the damage and only one target gets frozen. He didn't have the weapon equipped at that point, so that would potentially present a dilemma for Ryvius to actually maybe not freeze face for once, but it was really that turn where it looked like such an obvious Glavebound, but he floated mana, went for the Overseer that I thought was so good.
Yeah, I just loved pretty much everything I saw there, especially in the early turns. The setup from Possessi of going for the Frozen Shadow Weaver on 3, and then again going for it on 4, and then setting up, as you said, for the Overseer. It was keeping exactly in his mind that the read on the Glavebound Adept was there, and he played around it so well every single turn. I think that was a very well-deserved win.
Indeed. And well played from Ryvius as well. I think that there's a lot that goes wrong when you get frozen 2 turns in a row. It often feels like there's no way to get back the tempo from that point, but Ryvius really brought it down to the wire, and he will get another shot with Demon Hunter.
But first of all, Gia,
yeah,
we have to go to our good old favorite, our old friend, the Druid Mirror, of which there is at least something more interesting to talk about here than the usual do you hit Glowfly. Ryvius is playing Starfall, but as it currently looks, that's not even going to be a consideration because he is going to be the first player to hit that Glowfly.
Yep, this looks like the first time in a million years where I've seen a Japanese player not get a good hand with Druid.
Yep, I'll agree with you there. And it is a pretty insane hand for Ryvius. The growth into Glowfly into, shortly thereafter, a pretty insane Mount Seller. It's devastatingly strong.
I have no arguments whatsoever. Possessi can go for his Overgrowth into Mount Seller. But Ryvius will just have time to play Glowfly first, and he's got Roar.
So if we're looking at Bog Beam off the top, or Innovate in order to get at the Crystal Power, maybe Possessi can clear off enough?
Yeah, that would be very big here. Oh, is that Ironbark? Nope.
Nope. So on one minion, in order to...
I don't think you do that. If you're just going Mount Seller, Bog Beam clear one minion, why not just Fungal Fortune's Crystal Power 1 minion. You could potentially clear
Okay,
more.
okay. And then,
Up for a bigger swing.
fair enough, fair enough.
Okay, let's count damage. Savage Roar is not lethal if he removes 1 minion. Oh, he could even go Roar Crystal Power to remove 2 and still fit in the Fungal Fortunes if you like. Yeah, I really like this.
Time waits for no one.
Seller.
Okay, it's not the end of the world. He still is setting up for an incredibly powerful Mount Seller
Right.
turn next turn. And given that Ryvius is only here looking at, what, 23 damage, it's
That is
still in
chump
with
change.
a chance here for Ryvius.
For druids these days? Oh, wow. Is he committing even more, knowing that he'll get, if he wants to, 3 spells next turn? I am not entirely sure about that.
Me neither.
It is so hard to evaluate the average Mount Seller minion, because the difference between a taunt or a rush and none is near infinite.
Yeah, I love this from Ryvius as well, getting down the Mount Seller, because one thing we often forget, it's a 5-8. It's just a well-statted
Right.
minion on its own. And even with the measly hair, this should still be getting the job done.
I supply only the
Alright,
finest creatures.
2 Diving Griffins could deal with that Mount Seller. No more, no less. I haven't seen a Griffin in forever. What's going on?
And you're not going to see one today, as Ryvius
Yep.
is going to very handily indeed equalize the score here at 2 games apiece for Savage Roar to end things out. It is the only way it feels like that the Druid Mirror can go, where one player hits the early Glowfly and the other player does not.
It does, but the chance that he gave himself, I think, by going for Fungal Fortunes on that turn, not settling for just Mount Seller 1 Bog Beam, was significant. Had he drawn Innervates, we could have seen potentially a much bigger swing. I'm just unsure as to whether he had to expend that Bog Beam the turn that he did, if he was going for the big high roll swing, which I feel is his best path to victory.
I agree. I think he definitely just kind of panicked at the end there and was thinking, is there any way that I died? Double Savage Roar, I think, would have killed him exactly, or just a little bit over, but he would have died to double Savage Roar. But I don't really think you can be afford to play around double Savage Roar there, because you are so far behind anyway.
Right.
And just a Power of the World plus Savage Roar wasn't ending the game. So I think it was just a case of, in the moment, you have to make a snap decision, and he made overall probably not the correct one.
Yeah. And that is the type of mistake that we infrequently see from Posesi, if any at all.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of carelessness and maybe a little bit of panic. And that does mean that we're going to see the Druid versus Demon Hunter for Game 5. This is the matchup where, if you're in Asia Pacific, apparently not all too bad for the Druid, but last series we did see Shansu absolutely give Surrender a beating.
We did, and the list for Posesi, I think, is in no way especially teched for the Demon Hunter. It doesn't have the Ysera in the late game, which means he can run a little bit more of the mid game, but I think that really comes in the form of an extra Savage Roar rather than any extra removal. So overall, I think he's just as likely as you think Demon Hunter or Druid is against Demon Hunter, which with a hand like this is, I'm going to say, pretty favored.
Yes, the coin innervate Glowfly. We talk about this so much. The difference between turn 3 and turn 5 Glowfly Swarm is just massive.
Yes.
I mean, being able to swing back the board that fast and then capitalize on whatever minions are remaining, that can be Druid's ticket to victory. My question here is whether Overgrowth gets kept.
Well, I'm wondering if Exotic Mount Seller gets kept along with the Overgrowth.
Okay.
I know it seems slow, but it is a very powerful curve. And unless Demon Hunter hits an insanely aggressive start, it probably will be enough to pull you back into the game.
It does just curve out, right? Turn 3, Coin Innervate Glowfly. Turn 4, Overgrowth. And then turn 5, Mount Seller.
Yeah.
But
You're running low on spells then?
Exactly.
Is that really consistent overall? Has it got to be one half or the other?
Okay, I thought he
Okay.
triple cap. Wait, toss an Innervate. That is shocking to me.
I guess he's just all out on the fungal fortunes.
The fires of vengeance burn bright.
But if you expect to mostly be drawing spells anyway, isn't that still what? Even without fungal fortune,
Yeah.
6 glowflies, 5 or 6
Hey,
turn
I
3.
got you, friend.
Yeah.
A lot. More than
I mean, I have been advocating for keeping Innovate quite often when players haven't liked it overall. Again, they just have, in this practice group of the Japanese players, it feels like such a strong commitment to only looking for fungal fortunes when you have the glowfly.
I mean, got it anyway.
But he got it anyway. And a complete skip on turn 3 does give Posesi the leeway that he needs in order to start rolling with this glowfly.
Most likely 5 glowflies still available. He's gotta do it, right?
Unless he thinks the play is
Hero
like
power?
Savage Roar this turn, or yeah, I mean, I guess Hero Power just does the same thing to take out the Worgen.
What to do?
I think there's an opportunity to deviate from the turn 3 glowfly purely because Ryvius' turn 3 was so weak. But
Right.
What if there is just Satyr Overseer Hero Power on the next turn suddenly?
He would have just played it. Like, you just play it there. You're not floating a
Alright.
whole 2 mana just because they might remove your Overseer.
True.
I think the thing here is for Posesi is he has a read that there's no good 3-drop, and the only good 4-drop in the deck is Kayn, which unfortunately for him is exactly what Ryvius has.
Right. But Ryvius doesn't have the lethal setup right now.
Mm-hmm.
One Twin Slice could be huge though. Because of both Altruist and Glavebound.
Oh! Warglaves can
That
clear
is a
almost
big one as well.
entire board, Gia. That is devastating!
Posesi doesn't have follow-up. He doesn't have
He has
card
nothing.
draw.
He's got nothing left.
Oh my gosh, just 2 flies in a dream. And ramp into nothing?
Ramp into Ironbark, but there's the Kayn there. It doesn't even taunt.
He probably still just takes it, right? The free development. You
Ironbark
go
double
Overgrowth,
trade.
Ironbark. Are you trading? I'm looking at Innervate, Power of the Wild. Okay, you can take 1 value trade in that, but maybe the
I mean, you
Kayn
have
just
to kill
gets-
Kayn, right? Because otherwise the taunt doesn't do anything.
True. Probably just dead on the backswing.
What to do?
Oh my goodness.
Just going for absolute maximum clearage here.
Could he not have done this with Vate Overgrowth? Because then the Ironbark would have been free.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
I guess that makes certain potential draws a bit weaker. Blowfly and Mount Stellar. But
Not really, though. Yeah, I think your
Wow.
play was just better.
it did not come together here. Gotta use Savage Roar for clearing. There is no refill insight. Ryvius can just go Hero Power, Glaive Bound if he wants, or Skull set up for an Altruist turn. Ryvius' top
only out
priority is being scared of Overflow.
Right, exactly. Overflow is the out now for Posesi, and as far as I'm seeing it, it is pretty much the only out here. Fungal Fortunes into the Overflow is also still a possibility with the Innovate.
Because of that, we're seeing Ryvius go for pretty much a Tempo Altruist again, just to make
Wow.
the best possible play awkward. Oh, Posesi is stressed. He's got 1 cycle available from this Wrath. It has to be Wrath into either Fate Overflow into Bog Beam to deal with this, or Fungal Fortunes into something similar. The Fungal!
Oh!
Just shaking his head. There's the bog
Bog
beam.
beam? He can stay alive?
He can't hero power this because he's frozen. He has another draw with Rising Winds if he wants. He can get Crystal Power, and get Moonfire, and get the other bog beam.
Waits for no one.
Gotta go for the draw, right? There's just too many things he's dead to if he leaves either one of these up.
He's gonna have to content himself with just clearing one though and praying that it is enough to stay alive. At the moment
Ryvius,
it is.
But he can just go Skull.
Alas,
The big refill.
poor warlock.
Oh, big development
I
too.
see his weakness.
Posesi's still in it?
I mean, he needs the other fungal fortunes, I think. Like a single
Yeah.
card draw off the top will not do it, even with this Mount Seller.
I supply
Oh.
only the finest creatures.
Doesn't even have the mana to get to the overgrowth fort cycle. Gotta be GG.
What? That's a taunt.
Wait, that... Huh? Wait, what?
What?
He just
He
thought
thought
that
it was
Bog
I-beam!
Beam! Oh no!
A natural
Posesi,
mistake.
no!
Posesi! What are you doing, man? Oh.
I concede.
We know he would have died anyway, but... Oh, it is so painful to watch it go
Oh.
down that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to win a series of Hearthstone. And I've got to say to you, we're starting to see the unraveling of Posesi. This is 2 series in a row now where he has blundered the last turn of the game. Obviously, you know, we can see that it was over anyway, but from his perspective, he had a chance there, as slim as it may have been, in order to try and turn it around.
Yeah, had he just taunted his own Mount Seller, that was a wall of a lot of health in the way, 11 health, and he had
Yep.
another taunt. He could have been dead to Metamorphosis, but you just cannot afford to be making mistakes like that. And you know what? This happened with Don versus Tyler, right? And Tyler did the flex. And
Yep.
I think it's fair to say it was not very obvious to Tyler how big of a mistake Don had made. It was very obvious to Ryvius there, and he just straight up... What
Yep.
a god.
What
a
an
god.
absolute god. But it really speaks to me, to the overall story of Asia Pacific here, which is there's a kind of acceleration in terms of how well you're doing. The better you're doing, the better you're likely to do, because Glory, sitting at 4-0 now, he is under no pressure, no threat of relegation whatsoever. He is guaranteed in the top 6 at least of Division A now, even if he just continues to lose every single series. And because of that, the pressure's off. He doesn't have to worry so much about every single game. And therefore, he's playing better. We are seeing the players make these mistakes when they are right down to the wire and potentially looking at ending up down at the bottom, which for Posesi now, down to 2-2 and now 2-3, he is really starting to suffer at the feet of pressure, just not really being able to deal with this extra weight that's being placed on his shoulders.
It is very true. If we look at the standings in APAC compared to the other regions, we're seeing more of the extremes. We're seeing 4-0s and 0-4s,
Yep.
whereas I think Americas and EU, more so in Americas, everybody is drifting middle, and the tiebreakers
Yep.
get even more scary. But with APAC, you're right. Momentum, whether it's uphill or downhill, is such a huge factor right now. And it just breaks my heart to see, because Posesi, he played so well in the Demon Hunter mirror. I think that
Yeah.
was so well recognized the turn he went for the Satyr Overseer instead of Glaive Bound, even though it was off curve. But the way the Druid mirror ended, just so painful to watch.
It was so brutal overall. I don't want to take anything away from Ryvius, however. While we are obviously focusing on the more exciting part of Posesi taking the win, it was just a very solid week overall from Ryvius. He's bringing much more standard deck list, and I think just played an overall very standard, solid game of Hearthstone overall.
Yes, Ryvius, I think, could be on the upswing now. He was one of the players drifting towards the middle of Division A. Now has a better shot at possibly taking one of those Japanese players, because I think Posesi was the one at 2-2, and he's now fallen to 2-3.
Indeed. But let's take a look at the schedule.